Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Tiana.
And this is Next Door Villain,
a podcast where we uncover the villains to discover their humanity. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Next Door Villain. We have a special episode for you today.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed your time away from us, and we hope that you are also excited that we're back.
I did not enjoy the time away.
No, me neither. I'm very happy to be back making new episodes for y'all. We will be back with our next official full episode at the end of February. We'll be doing Meredith Blake from The Parent Trap.
Yeah.
But today, we have a very special episode. It's Oscar season, and actually it's the Oscars today, if you're listening on Sunday, February 9th, when this episode is released.
Is that when it's getting released? Okay. Surprise! All right, yes, indeed.
Yes, if you're listening, whatever.
No, that makes sense.
It's Oscar season, and so we thought we would do our own Oscars celebrating the best villains of 2019.
Yes, but we are also listing our best villains in TV shows and movies, so it would be the Oscars Emmys, or what we like to call...
The Oskies.
The Oskies.
Oh, but we're also calling an even funnier name... The Convictys.
The Convictys.
Yeah, it's like convicts with a Y.
Yes.
At the end.
And plural, because there's many of them.
But you pronounce it like convict.
And
I don't know. We liked the name.
And it's a play on words because they have a lack of conviction, usually.
But you might say that villains have very strong conviction about their feelings and what they want to accomplish.
That is true.
They're convicts with conviction.
They're Convictys.
All right, so what we've done is we each came up with a couple of categories, and then we'll give our villain of the year. Obviously, we did not see every movie and television show, so this is really just kind of our opinions.
Yeah.
And we would love to hear yours, so if you disagree, let us know. Tell us who you think should win in each category. But we try to do our best in picking some of the coolest villains in a number of different categories. And we are going to start off, Tiana, with one of your categories, which, what is it? What's your first category?
So, the first category of the Convictys 2019 is the sexiest villain of 2019.
Oh, this is a great category.
Yeah, very excited for this.
There were a number of great honorable mentions this year. For me, I think the first villain that popped into my head was Kylo Ren, who is maybe not the most traditionally sexy guy, but he has this air about him. I think this kind of like, I don't know, animal magnetism. He's got, in the last movie when he wasn't wearing a shirt and he's all ripped. And then,
yeah,
I don't know. There's something about him that popped into my mind. He's not my top pick, but he was an honorable mention.
Yeah.
And then another honorable mention for me, I think, is Daenerys from Game of Thrones, who was only a villain this past year when she turned on everyone and basically destroyed the whole city. Do you have any honorable mentions?
Oh, honorable mentions. Myself? No, just kidding. I wasn't in any TV shows or movies, so I actually had a bit of a hard time with this one because I think it's common that sometimes villains are not very attractive, but I think in recent years more villains have been kind of attractive. I don't know. I actually did not have any honorable mentions.
Oh yeah, I also struggled with this category because this is a year where we had villains like Thanos,
right,
with his butt chin thing, whatever that.
Right.
And Pennywise the clown.
Yeah, they're not, people I really want to jump on and bang.
Yeah.
But I will definitely give my choice. Yeah.
Great. Who's your choice?
I feel like I should have an envelope in front of me or something. But to me, Tiana's opinion, my number one choice was Jafar from the live-action Aladdin film that came out in 2019. And he
got a lot of buzz for his
lots
looks.
of buzz, lots and lots and lots of buzz. And he's just so suave, just like walking in the sand with his parrot, looking all feisty and angry that he's not rich and powerful. But you cannot deny, I'd like that as a snack.
Yeah. My pick for sexiest villain of 2019 goes to a television series. And her name is Villanelle from
Killing Eve.
Yes, Killing Eve. She's a very attractive young woman who is also a powerful assassin who's like amazing at her job. And she's also got kind of this like sensitive backstory. So I don't know. I'm attracted to her confidence and her skill, but also I kind of like can empathize with her. And she's the whole package for me.
I feel like it's hard to look sexy while slitting a throat. And Villanelle could be.
But she achieves it.
But she, there was something about her where she just has so much confidence and ability to really wreak havoc. And I'm not saying I agree with what she's doing, but you almost agree with what she's doing when she's serving those looks.
Next category is for the funniest villain of 2019. Do you have any honorable mentions, Tiana?
An honorable mention is the villain from Sex Education. You would assume, if you've seen Sex Education, it's on Netflix, you would assume the main villain of Sex Education is Adam, which is kind of the school bully who's also closeted. But it's actually his father, who I think is kind of funny and who is also a villain. It's because of his desperate attempt to try and be perfect and try and teach students wrong things about sex, or try to I don't know. He's just kind of clumsy, and I'll just leave it at that. And he's also a little daft.
Yeah, this was a tough category for me. I don't know that a lot of the villains I saw were very funny, but one that kind of popped into my mind was also a Netflix series, Big Mouth, and the Hormone Monsters. They're almost kind of like sidekicks to the heroes or the protagonists of the show. But then I started thinking about it and I was like, wait a minute. Hormones are really like the villain of the teenage years.
That's true.
Big Mouth does such a great job with representing hormones as these like comical monsters that are rooting us on to do things that we wouldn't do otherwise if we weren't motivated by our emotions and our feelings. And so I think that they were really funny. But they didn't beat out my number one pick, which was from Oscar-nominated comedy Jojo Rabbit.
Oh,
yeah, if you haven't seen it, it is a comedy about Nazi Germany. And I'm giving the award for funniest villain to Imaginary Hitler, who is the imaginary friend of the main character in the film, not the real Hitler, obviously.
We hope not.
Yeah, but he's just this like funny, emotional guy who's like trying to get this kid to like believe that Jews are these horrible, terrible monsters. And I don't know. I feel like I'm backing myself into a hole talking about this, but he's just so funny. And I enjoyed that film so much. And if you haven't seen it, you should definitely go see it. But funniest villain for me, Imaginary Hitler. What about you?
The funniest villain to me is actually Blake from the movie Isn't It Romantic that came out in 2019. Long story short, Isn't It Romantic is just a spoof on romantic comedies. And when you first meet Blake, he is the stereotypical romantic man. But then later in the movie, you just kind of find out that he's just being romantic for the sake of being romantic. Like there's no depth or actual intent on having a real deep relationship with the main character. So he's very ridiculously romantic. He gives the character who Rebel Wilson plays a bunch of petals with a bunch of numbers on it, but the petals aren't in order of his phone number. He's like, this is my phone number, call me. And it's just very ridiculous because, like, I still don't know what your phone number is. And he's just dipping her and, like, kissing her, which seems nice and hilarious at the same time, but also villainous. So it's kind of the perfect combination of funny and villainy.
Nice. Quick side comment. Rebel Wilson is also in Jojo Rabbit.
Really?
She is, she's a Nazi, comical Nazi, like, secretary leader type.
Thank you, Rebel. I feel like before we announce the categories, we should have a musical number or like Beyonce come out. I don't know, just like a little doody ditty. Let's do a category that I did. Most complex villain.
Yeah, this is a good category, I think, because you can kind of interpret it in a number of different ways. Complexity is something that we see in a lot of different villains, and we see it in the way that they understand and interpret their world. We see it in their actions and the plans that they come up with to try to take down the protagonists of their stories. Mm-hmm. This is a great villain category, and I think a lot of great villains out there this year. Joker was a very complicated character who I really enjoyed. He was dealing with obviously mental health issues, and ultimately like becomes a villain not of his own accord through like a complicated series of events that lead him to become the Joker as we know him in pop culture. Another really complicated one is the family in Parasite.
Yes.
Which is a phenomenal film. It's this family that they're a poor family and they slowly take advantage of this rich family by lying to them and becoming their helpers, and they get paid a lot of money to do it. They basically like take over this family. It's this like big complicated mess that ultimately gets them into a lot of hijinks, which are both funny and incredibly sad. Those are my honorable mentions. Do you have any?
The Parasite family is actually an honorable mention that I have as well, except I felt that everyone in this film was villainous in some way and very complex. Even the wealthy family.
Yeah, I would agree. Great characters, but I am giving my most complex villain convictee to Red from the movie Us.
Okay.
Which as a movie I completely forgot about until I, was looking back at movies from this year. And wow, that was a movie that was, the movie itself was incredibly complicated, but Red was this young girl who met her tethered twin self and then got attacked when she was young and then taken underground, and then she like leads this rebellion of the tethered people underground to ultimately like come up and take their lives back from the people that they're tethered to.
Dear Lord.
Have you not seen this?
No.
Oh man, I just like totally ruined the plot for you.
Nah, it's okay. I'll forget, obviously. No.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal film, and really just like, it's kind of like a mind-blowing, like, oh my God, what's going on? And really, even after you watch it, you're still like, I don't really know what happened, but it was amazing. So my convictee for most complex villain goes to Red.
My convictee of most complex villain is Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad and El Camino. Of course, Breaking Bad, that ended in like 2013. I'm referring to El Camino, which came out in 2019. He is the most complex because the perspective in which the movie was shot was very much of Jesse Pinkman's perspective. It was easy for the audience to sympathize with him, but yet when I was watching the movie, I still felt this weird tug of disappointment in him as well. Like the complexity of wanting to be redeemed and to start all over, but knowing that that person, if they were to start over, also would not pay for the tragedy that they contributed to.
Our final category before we give out Villain of the Year is going to go to the most powerful villain. This is for the villain who just like has the ability to destroy the most stuff and do the most damage in a physical, powerful, sheer power.
Right. Yes.
A lot of great villains. I'm thinking about King Ghidorah from the Godzilla movie, which I did not see, but but I know King Ghidorah from just like Godzilla stories, and he's this powerful three-headed dragon who does some amazing stuff, and he was almost my pick for most powerful villain, but there was one that beat him out. Pennywise the Clown was pretty powerful in more of a mind-bending kind of way.
I actually kind of disagree.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I guess I didn't see It too. I saw the first It.
Yeah. Maybe I'm off base on that one.
He couldn't defeat kids, man. But
yeah, you're right. I take it back. Any honorable mentions for you?
She was part of a different category, but Daenerys, I think just because, not physically, but I guess because she had dragons and shit, so.
Yeah, and actually another one that we should mention, I think, in this category is Jafar, because he, he's initially just like a regular, well, not a regular person, he's a sorcerer, which makes him pretty powerful, but then he turns himself into the most powerful sorcerer in the world, and then he turns himself into a genie, the most powerful being. So he was actually almost my pick for most powerful villain, but then he he gets himself trapped in the lamp and ultimately concedes all of his power to whoever takes the lamp. So couldn't give it to him.
Yeah.
I did end up giving my convictee for most powerful villain to who I think undoubtedly the most powerful person in the galaxy is Senator Palpatine from Star Wars. I mean, he's the primary villain for more or less 9 films, starting from, Phantom Menace. He's just a senator there who's like working in the background. We don't really know who he is, but he's always pulling the strings through all the Star Wars films. And that comes to an end in The Force Awakens when he basically has this massive fleet that's like going to take over the whole galaxy, and they just barely managed to beat him in the end. But the fact that he endured for so long and had so much power over everything, and that he had powers in the Force that managed to like save him from death, and like, I don't know, he was so much. The most powerful villain for me, for sure.
The most powerful villain of 2019 to me was Thanos. I think if you can take down the Avengers, the fact that he could basically turn people into dust.
Yeah.
It's very powerful. He actually inspired me. He actually inspired a line in a poem that I wrote about villainy because he's just so powerful. He got into my poetry. I have not recited this poem for the podcast yet, but I probably will soon-ish.
Nice. We look forward to it. And now it's time for the category of the night, the one we've all been waiting for, which is, of course, the Convictee for Villain of the Year. This is a tough category. There are a lot of villains. How do you pick the best villain? What metric do you use to measure villainy? Right? I mean, we talked about most powerful already, but does most powerful make the best villain? Unbridled power without intelligence means very little.
I'll tell you what I thought of.
What's that?
Just which villain in 2019 had the most impact on people.
Yeah, for me, ultimately, I think my choice came down to what villain really kind of reflected society and reflected like things that we fear in real life. And so like in a sense was like a fictional villain that really scared me because it made me think about the world that I'm actually living in.
Do you think it could be possible we have the same villain in mind?
It could be possible. For our listeners, we did not tell each other who our villain of the year is. We're going to surprise ourselves. The other thing that made this year tough is that a lot of the big name villains this year were villains that already existed. There were not a lot of original villains. And not that a villain has to be original to win the Convictee for Villain of the Year, but there's something to be said about originality and impact, whereas villains like Scar or Pennywise or King Ghidorah or Thanos or Jafar, all of these villains like we already know, and they've already resonated with us. So it was tough. I wanted to give this to Kylo Ren. That was my first thought, because I feel like I love him as a character. I think that he reflects a lot of negativity that we see in the world today. But then I thought about it and I realized that Kylo Ren is not really the villain of the Star Wars movie that came out this year. Palpatine was really the villain of that movie. And so for that reason, I did not give my villain of the year to Kylo Ren. If it was 2018, I probably would have for his role in the previous film. But this year, I actually went with a villain we've already discussed for reasons that we've already discussed. My villain of the year, 2019, goes to everyone in the movie Parasite.
Okay.
For all the reasons you discussed earlier, the poor family that takes advantage of the rich family, they're really quite villainous. They're lying to these people in order to get into their lives and to siphon off their money. And they're really kind of malicious about it. But at the same time, you can kind of see why they're doing it, because they're living in a truly bad situation that they have no way out of. On the other hand, the rich family they're rude, they're mean, they're passive aggressive. There's so many negative things. And it just really, that movie made me think about the world and about poverty and about like power dynamics between the rich and the poor and how that can make people do crazy things. It just made me think about the world at large that I'm living in, and it brought up some really scary things in an interesting way. So Parasite is my pick.
It made me think about how easy it is for a person to just ignore who lives right next to them.
Yeah.
We do not actually have the same villain of the year. And I am slightly cheating.
Ooh.
A little bit. Just a tiny bit. Because the show ended technically a few days ago.
Oh, but they were in the lexicon of villainy in 2019.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
yes.
Oh, I know who you're going to pick.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm picking this person is because I think he represents the villainy that we can see within ourselves in our day-to-day lives. He represents the villainy that we can become if we do not take action to really reflect on ourselves and how we treat other people. We probably will never do an episode on this person because the TV show does a good job at showing this person's background and who he is and why we can also empathize with him while also not appreciating what he's doing. And so my villain of the year is BoJack Horseman.
Yeah, great villain. And yeah, you're right. I have thought about doing an episode about him, but the show does a lot of the empathy already.
A good job.
Yeah.
Right. They do a good job. We would just kind of be reiterating a lot of what the show says.
He's truly villainous, and I see why you thought maybe we were talking about the same one, because so many of the terrible things that he does reflect terrible things that terrible people are doing in the world right now and that we're being forced to reckon with.
And at the same time, when I was watching the show, I still wanted him to find peace.
Yeah.
And I think it's really powerful when you can watch a villain, hate them, love them, and still want the best for them.
Yeah, and actually I struggle with that so much with BoJack because I want to hate him, and I hate him. I do. He did some terrible things, and I want him to reckon with that. But I can't figure out a way that he could reckon with it that I would feel satisfied. But I also want him to reckon with it and move on, and I want him to be the best self that he can be. Yeah. So complicated.
But what makes him villain of the year is just, I think, in a way, we're all guilty of not being that great of people. And basically because of what I said before. I don't know why I'm trying to repeat that.
Yeah.
But I said it.
Yeah. One other.
And, sorry, he made a very impact. He made a great impact on people.
Uh-huh.
Like, he made people just say, wow, like, I see myself in this person, or I feel for this person, or I just am so captivated and changed by what I'm seeing to the point where I'm going to get help. Like, that happened to people because they watched this villain. And so that's also a reason why he's villain of the year, because of the impact that he made on people.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to bring this up earlier because I thought it was funny. I have one other villain of the year, and I know a lot of our I hope that not a lot of our listeners would be upset by this, but I also think they might, because this caused quite a controversy, but I loved it and I thought it was so funny and also striking. And I just want to play a little clip from an SNL skit that brought up, I think, a villain that appeared in many of the films this year.
Manson, Hitler, white male rage. World War I, cause of white male rage. Little Women, big performances, but Greta Gerwig some cause of white male rage. Buzz and Woody at it again, it's white male rage. White male rage, white male rage.
But I loved this clip because I think when you think about a lot of the Oscar nominations, which we didn't talk much about because a lot of them have real villains and we don't talk about real villains, is that there are a lot of angry white men.
Yeah, you're right. When I look through our list, there's some pretty angry white men.
Yeah.
Like, even Villanelle is not that angry.
Kylo Ren, Jafar. In the SNL skit, she talks about Buzz and Woody are like yelling at each other.
Right.
Yeah, white male rage for villain of the year.
Yeah, that too.
Anyways, I thought that was really funny. And it was something that I was thinking about as I was preparing for these awards. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways.
A lot of white men anger.
Yeah, we've talked for way longer than we intended to. So
as per usual.
Yeah. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, like we said earlier, with our next episode, our next full episode, which will be Meredith Blake from The Parent Trap. So we hope you tune in for that. And then we'll be back on to our regular twice a month schedule after that.
Yup. All right. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.